how do you evaluate that? Where are you going to get the investors to invest in the fund? How would they trust you, and how would you go and select the countries and which domain to invest?
When we first started out, we were the first, private fund dedicated to investing in space. We always had a global view. We always wanted to get the best, no matter which country it was from. We don't really choose the company, General Panu. We choose the entrepreneurs. I don't believe in scaling up. I believe in thinking big from the very beginning. For me to be interested, if people come to me and say, we're going to start here, and then we go here, here, and here, I say, forget it. I want to have the big vision. I want to understand from the beginning that you are going to be a global company.
How would you pick and choose the percentage of the arrival of a frontier technology, which is sufficient for you to say, okay, I go for it, even though it is not fully baked?
What we do is we see that frontier technology, as you said, is usable. It may not be 100%, it may not be scaled, but it is definitely usable, and that there are clients who are using that technology and who are depending on that technology for their business growth.
What is it that separates a great founder in space from a founder in any other industry?
If they've had success in a related field, the chances are we see that as good, because we do like to invest in serial entrepreneurs. We like to invest in an entrepreneur, a founder that has already had at least one success, because he's gone or she has gone through the whole, process.
Hello and welcome to the Space Club of India. I'm Sandeep Unithan, joined by Lieutenant General PJS Pannu, the founder of the Space Club of India. And today we have with us a very unique person, a very unique personality, one of the few space innovators. She has a number of firsts to her credit. Candace Johnson. Candace, welcome to the Space Club of India.
I am so pleased to be here. Thank you so much, General Panu and Sandeep. And, I have to say, I understand that this is the inaugural studio. We're inaugurating the studio for the Space Club, and I'm just absolutely thrilled. I actually even helped cut the ribbon, so that was pretty cool. And looking forward to having a nice conversation with you.
Pleasure's all ours, Candace. Thank you for being here, taking out time to be with us. You are, what we were discussing earlier, a serial new space entrepreneur. You've been doing it for 44 years? 45 years.
Yes.
But tell us about your extraordinary story. How did it all begin? The story of your romance with space.
Well, that's very nice. And actually, romance does come into the picture a little bit later. But, I grew up in a family where my father was working on the first satellites for the United States government, and then did the world's first private satellite systems, and also he was lent by the U.S. Air Force to work on the Apollo mission with President Kennedy. So, growing up from the age of 5, I thought everybody did space. And indeed, when I was, 5 years old in 1957, I received, and when, of course, Sputnik was launched on October 4th, I received this little toy Sputnik with Santa Claus inside. And I thought from then on that everything good came from space, and I still do. And, I always tell everybody that the most important thing is that the technology serves a purpose. And also that you should choose your weapons.
Right.
And for me, because I had grown up in space, Werner von Braun would come to our house, and Vint Cerf, and all of these people. And I always looked at seeing problems and then realizing that space could solve those problems.
Right.
So, whether it was providing freedom of choice for Europe's citizens, when I co-founded SES, Société Européenne des Satellites, in 1983, please, or when I was on the founding team of Iridium in 1994 to provide universal access, or to start ILS, International Launch Services, in 1995, which was a joint venture between Khrushchev in Russia and Lockheed Martin in the United States, to have more variety and more choice in accessing space. I've always had a purpose, and that purpose has been served by technology. And I think also what's kind of fun, and I didn't really realize it until, I don't know, a few months ago, a friend came and looked at, I have all of my pictures and everything in my bedroom. So, because I don't, where else can you show them, right? So anyway, he looked at these pictures and he said, Candace, this is like a museum of commercial space. And it is true that I pretty much have been involved with just about every commercial space, venture. And just to kind of finish that thought, and then I'll let you come ask me some more questions. But it is that very fitting, I think, that I am the chair of the Seraphim Space Fund, which is the world's first and largest space and space tech fund. So we have 150 investments across 33 countries, and in 6 continents, of course, India being one. And for me, new space, i.e., privately financed, commercially and market-oriented space, is really the only space I've ever done.
Right. And, I was, when you said Werner von Braun, I was reminded of this photograph, this cover of National Geographic, autographed by Neil Armstrong himself when he visited
Amazing.
India 3 decades ago. It was a Werner von Braun rocket that took men to the moon.
Yes.
But I'm sure, General Pannu, you have questions as well.
Yeah, Candace says that she has got the largest space fund. That means money. She's talking about 33 countries. I mean, I really stretch my imagination and wonder if the countries must be after her as a diplomat who can actually go and decide which country would grow more, which could grow less, which have more potential. How do you evaluate that? Where are you going to get the investors to invest in the fund? How would they trust you, and how would you go and select the countries and which domain to invest? You must be having huge amount of inputs on where not to invest, because either it is overinvested or it is not matured enough.
Yeah.
Where do you get the best bang? So the question is large. Getting the money, it means trust. Giving the money also means trust and evaluation. And third is international diplomacy in picking and choosing where to go in. How do you process all this?
Okay, well, I think you actually said the magic word, which was bang. Because whenever I talk about investing in space, I always say it comes down to 2 things: the bang for the buck and using or defying gravity. And so we at Seraphim, so we're just entering our 2nd decade. And when we first started out, we were the first, private fund dedicated to investing in space. And another word that you used, but I may suggest that you don't say fund, but that you say invest, because we don't fund projects, we invest in projects, and we expect a return on investment. And from the beginning, we always had a global view. We always wanted to get the best, no matter which country it was from. Of course, there were some exceptions to that. And the second thing is that we realized you can't just from one day to the other invest in a unicorn. And so we actually have a kind of 3-pronged approach. So we have an accelerator where we chose the best, and everybody could apply around the world. And we had then, we would pick 10 members for each cohort. And I'm very happy to say that we've had a number of the space cohorts that came from India already from the beginning, already in our 2nd or 3rd cohort. And so that was very interesting. Then we have venture funds. So venture funds where we're talking about investing in seed or in Series A. And then we also have a growth fund, which is listed on the London Stock Exchange. So we are the world's first space publicly listed investment fund on the London Stock Exchange. And so this gives us the possibility from the beginning, to look at the company. So when we're looking at the accelerator, we're saying, okay, which companies do we think we would like to invest in? And we take options to be able to invest. And then also we have a wonderful network of board members who are really sourcing companies for this. And, I think that one day we will be announcing something very nice about that. So, that is a great source of what we call deal flow. And then we have an amazing team. So I am the chair of the advisory, the supervisory board, but our management team, they are real business people. They are real investment experts. And when I was leaving a company and quite frankly in 2018, and I was being asked by a number of companies if I would come and be the chair of their boards. And I said, I will only go to that fund where I know that it will be $1 billion fund. And also the fact that, yes, I did know space, but then I'm absolutely zilch in terms of, numbers and all of this stuff. And so the management team, the managing partners at Seraphim are, tops in the world. And so I chose to go with them. And I've been so happy because their professionalism in choosing the companies. I mean, we don't just pick it out of the sky. You might think we might, but we don't. No, it's very much, numbers based. This kind of, accelerator venture fund growth allows us to really track an entrepreneur, to track their progress, to track the market. We do a global index on space investment, which is, used by almost all of the big investment companies. And then you talk about, space diplomacy or things like this. So we don't really choose the company, General Panu. We choose the entrepreneurs. And if they happen to be from India, we're very proud. We have invested in Pixel. We have invested in Skylo, and these are just amazing companies. But we chose to invest in those companies because they had amazing entrepreneurs. And then the same thing in Japan, with Astroscale, in the United States with Hawkeye, in Finland of all places, with ISI. So we have some real unicorns and actually decacorns. But we have chosen to, we've chosen the jockey, as they say, who we believe can lead that company to the biggest success and provide. Most importantly, people forget because people think, oh, space is, for governments and all of this stuff. No, we are an investment fund. We return we have a return on investment for our shareholders. We feel very strongly about this, and we have an excellent record.
Right. So, Candace, what is the biggest misconception that people have when they're talking about the SES era?
Yes.
Versus the new space era?
Well, so SES for sure was the world's first new space era. And, people do not realize actually that contrary to everything that was being done in Europe at that time, which was basically governments funding, not investing, funding in or giving grants to aerospace and defense companies, we were not that way. We had a mandate from the Luxembourg government that was, we will give you frequencies. We will give you access to our frequencies, but we intend for you to pay us license fees and to give us, to give us money in return. And so, from the beginning, we planned SES to be a money-making affair, not a research affair. We were not into that at all. Luxembourg at that time had 400,000 people. Today they have 660,000
Right.
people. There's no way that we were going to invest, quote unquote, in R&D. What we were investing in was, capitalization on the market and getting a return on our investment. And so we had bankers, and the bankers, they worked with us, and they said, okay, you have this amount of transponders or channels. You need to ask this amount of money to make certain that you're going to get the return on investment. And then you can ask for 10 years upfront cash, which we did. So when we launched, we were in the black from day one. And today, SES is still 40 years later, Luxembourg's largest single taxpayer. So I assure you, I'm living proof that you can make money and that you can make lots of money in space and space tech. You just have to choose the right time. And my feeling is that basically governments can and should invest in R&D because that is what they are doing. They're using public money for that. And then at the certain point where that company is gaining market traction, that is when private money can come in and can bring it to its success.
Right.
So Candace, you spoke about the technologies.
Yes.
There are far too many people talk about the frontier technology on a list of the number of technologies that people are talking about. You, as somebody who's going to invest in those technologies, some are fully discovered and are put to part use or full use.
Yeah.
And some are still being spoken about. How would you pick and choose the percentage of the arrival of a frontier technology, which is sufficient for you to say, okay, I go for it, even though it is not fully baked, it is not fully used, but it is usable? I'm sure there must be something behind you. And can you also talk about some frontier technologies which are now more closer to you when you look at investing in them?
Well, that is the beautiful thing about having this accelerator. And that is that it does allow us to invest in frontier technologies, which at a time may be really not at all developed, or the market may not be developed. We rarely invest, General Panu, in a technology where we know that there's going to be another long period of investment. That is not what we do. What we do is we see that frontier technology, as you said, is usable. It may not be 100%, it may not be scaled, but it is definitely usable. And that there are clients who are using that technology and who are depending on that technology for their business growth. And you can be rest assured that we go and we speak with each of those clients. And, to give you an example, already in 2018, we had 4 investments in quantum space companies. Okay, so, a lot of them doing quantum key distribution. In 2020, I think, we invested in a company that had been in our accelerator called Zona, Xona. They were doing high precision GPS. Well, today, high precision GPS is, kind of the ne plus ultra for drones. They have to have the high precision GPS. We invested in a company called tomorrow.io. So weather prediction, extreme weather prediction. Companies such as insurers, they all need to have this extreme weather prediction. One of our biggest successes in our portfolio is a company called ISI. When we invested here again in 2017, they're a SARS satellite constellation. So they did small orbital radio terminals. So what did that mean? That meant that these satellites that they were building, ISI, could look through clouds and could look at the Earth at nighttime. But in 2017, when we invested, their clients were basically weather companies.
Right.
And unfortunately, war does bring about necessity. And when the Ukrainian war started, then of course the Earth observation was now becoming dual use. And that same technology that could detect what the weather was going to be could now detect where tanks were, where troops were, etc., at night. And so the ISI company is actually a great investment for us. But it wasn't at all clear, General Panu. But what was clear was that usually the technology had been developed to a point where it could be used.
So, Candace, you mentioned that you're evaluating space tech founders,
Founders.
as an investor.
Yes.
What is it that separates a great founder in space from a founder in any other industry?
It's a good question. and I'm not sure that a founder in shall we say an internet founder or a technology founder, an AI founder, they have, if they are good in those technologies, they probably are good in space, because as we know, space is not just rockets and satellites.
Right.
It is AI, it is robotics, it is quantum, it is IoT, it is sensors, it is
Material
semiconductors,
sciences, yeah.
material sciences, etc. And so I think that if they've had success in a related field, the chances are we see that as good, because we do like to invest in serial entrepreneurs. We like
Right.
to invest in an entrepreneur, a founder that has already had at least one success, because he's gone or she has gone through the whole process. What we don't invest in is marketplace. I mean, that's definitely not something that we invest in founders. They may be fantastic, but we are talking about space, where space is risky. You have to make certain that it works and that you have no risk, because when you are in space, you cannot say, oh, gee, sorry, I had to go up and fix it. I mean, today now we can go up and fix things, but it is a very risky business. And so we work with the founders to make certain that they have, quote unquote, de-risked the project to the point where if they are launching in space, then they will have the best chances of having success. And, also I think the ability to work and to learn and to listen from the shareholders is very, very important. And we've had some, great stories where we've just seen, founders develop. We also, by the way, do not leave founders on their own. We
Right.
work with them. We help them put people on their boards. If they're missing, a great CFO or a great CMO or whatever, we work and we try to help them identify and get those people. So we are a very hands-on investor, but obviously always making certain that it is the founder who is leading the business.
It is interesting, how you are describing technology and investment hand in hand. I'd like to ask you something which is layered. When the technology moves sometimes from T to the Y of technology, the T changes. It means by the time the technology is understood, it also transforms. It also can get superseded by another one.
Yes.
So the speed at which the transformation takes place, to catch it at the right spot, is important.
Yeah.
But when the technology moves fast, the regulation changes and has to change, but it chases it first, and then the government policies have to come in. So technology to regulation to government policy, and then ultimately the policy of one country, the regulation of another country, and the technology which may be of the country or elsewhere. I think there are a number of number of layers like peels of an onion that you have to look at. How do you figure out that if space is not seen only as a national business, it becomes a global business?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't understand that space could be a national business. So I want to do something in India, so it remains in India. It is mine only for me. Whereas I feel that the moment you are into space, you're into global business. So how does technology, regulation, policy, global business, national understanding, and ownership, how do you fix all this very complicated web and clearly understand, or maybe direct and help people to understand which is the right way to go?
Yeah. So first of all, we never invest in any companies that are dependent on a regulation. You know, if a company or if a country has announced a regulation, good or bad, that where that company that we're looking at is investing in, we don't want to be dependent on regulation. So this is very, very important. Now, it may be that the regulation then changes and that it's either good or bad. But when we have made the investment, and we have looked very, very carefully, by the way, to see, is there going to be a regulation that could change for the good or for the bad? So I think this is very, very important. The second thing is that we really are, we are not governments. We are investment funds. And so we are looking at investing in the market traction. So that is what we analyze. Will the technology, we are not technology driven, we are market driven, we are profit driven. So the ability of that company to commercialize and to scale its technology is absolutely key in our decision. And we also never invest in national markets. We always invest in global markets. So even though I use the example that we invested in Astroscale in Japan. Well, there's Astroscale Japan, there's Astroscale Europe, and there's Astroscale United States. We invested in Pixel. There's Pixel India and there's Pixel Canada. We invested in Skylo. Skylo is actually an Indian entrepreneur, but based in the United States, but acting, globally. So we always look at the global business. Yes, there may be a predominant market, such as the United States, where, and here again, one of the reasons why we do invest a lot in the United States is that there is a difficulty. Unfortunately, we do have these silos and technological sovereignty issues, which are becoming increasingly important. But here again, we try and help those founders say, okay, if you are from a country where there is a technological sovereignty issue, have you thought about starting another subsidiary or whatever in another company? Because you do not, as I said, you do not want to be dependent on those regulations.
Right. So, talking about investments in space, there's over $12 billion of investment in space?
At least.
As opposed to about $1 billion a few years back.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean, my first
And quite, quite modestly or immodestly, I think we at Seraphim feel that we have contributed substantially to making that, leap from 1 billion to 12 billion.
Is it a healthy growth, or do you think that there's a bubble risk building up? That's the first part of the question. The second is, of course, we were talking earlier about the kind of money that's been flowing into Earth observation technologies, communications. Do you think that capital is headed in the right direction as opposed to where it should be headed? As someone who's been in the space business for over 40 years.
Okay. Well, I'm 73. And, people say, my gosh, Candace, what are you doing? You're still, working your little derriere off and everything. And, I say, look, this is the most exciting time in space. There's no way in the world that I'm going to miss this, because literally it is just beginning. It really is just beginning. And it's just beginning because we have the digital transformation, we have the IoT, the Internet of Things, we have sensors, we do have the whole shall we say, developments in material science, which are then also affecting semiconductor, companies, etc. We have the whole, what we call space in space, technology and market, which will then kind of be a trampoline for us to go from, Mars or from the moon to deep space, not necessarily to Mars,
Right.
but to deep space. So there's just so many exciting things going on. This really is just the beginning. The thing that I always worry about is investing in well and wisely used resources. So I do consider that space is a resource, and quite frankly, it is a limited resource, because you do have frequency bands which are getting full. You have a lot of satellites, that are filling up the various bands, and you are also seeing an accent and an emphasis on one type of technology to the detriment of other technologies. So we're seeing a lot happening in LEO, low Earth orbit, and yet the geostationary satellites are fantastic, and there are new developments going on with that, with what we call mini geos, so that each country can kind of have their own mini geo for maybe 100th the cost if they wanted to do a constellation, and they could have technological sovereignty, etc. Plus the fact that we are looking more at a world where we have multi-orbit systems, such as SES. I'm very proud that, we have this system where we have LEO, MEO, middle Earth orbit, and GEOS, and it's all connected, because people don't understand, LEOs use bandwidth. They have to get their bandwidth from somewhere. They can either get it from fiber optics, and by the way, probably the biggest customer of fiber optics is LEOs, or they can get it from GEOS or MEOs. So, you have to kind of look at really the big picture. You have to understand the trends. You have to also understand the fact that, yes, people are talking about orbital AI of Elon Musk, but is that really a wise use of funds? Could it not be done perhaps with quantum? Could it not be done with space data centers, which are focusing more on storage, et cetera? So, and I think that you do have to kind of not take the long view, because particularly with investment funds as ourselves, we are looking at making returns to our shareholders, in 7 years. And so we have to take a view that says, can we make this, in 7 years? But we, we also can say, whoa, we can do a partial exit. We can say, okay, because we think that there's so much more that is going to come, from that technology, such as eyesight. Just recently, they did a fundraise. We at Seraphim were one of their first investors. We could have exited, but we said, whoa, this company has still so much growth that it would be wrong to our shareholders to exit now, because they would actually lose on what they could be getting. So, but this is where you have real experts, on investing in money. You have real experts who are investing, who know about technology, not only about space, but what's going on in microgravity, what's going on in material sciences, what's going on in pharma. And also today, my husband was an ambassador, and he had been the ambassador to the Soviet Union. He was also the he negotiated the diplomatic relations between Luxembourg and China. He was an ambassador to the United States. He did all of the multinationals. And so I always kidded everybody. I said, well, I have my own Henry Kissinger at home, which I did, because I would ask him, I would say, well, what do you
Yeah.
think is going to happen, geopolitically? And he always had to say, gave me excellent advice and didn't ask me for a penny. So you do also need to have geopolitics and geopoliticians to come back to the point that General Panu was, making.
Right.
More we talk to you, more I feel like talking to you, obviously.
Well, thank
And
you.
you also said, 45 years that you've been associated with space, and then you're saying it has just got started.
Yeah.
And then at another level, you say um, space is getting filled up.
Yeah.
So I want to know, if it has just got started and if it is getting filled up, how much more space is in space yet to be filled up?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very important point of discussion, because you have youngsters, and you met some of them just now, 12 years, 14 years,
Yes,
20
I was
years,
so happy to meet them.
looking at you with hope that at some point, when they reach a stage, they may not pick up a job, they might like to become either an entrepreneur or to do something in space law, space economy management, or whatever they want to do. For them to start now, are they going to have adequate space? And also, those people are now sitting in pairs of twos or threes, with new ideas which have come into their minds. Of course, they imagine based on some knowledge that they gain. Ultimately, would they find the headroom worth continuing to work in this sector?
Yes. So it's a very, very good question, General Panu. So when I say that space is getting filled up, it is true that there are certain frequency bands that are getting filled up. At the same time, the ITU is and countries are liberating frequencies to be used for space operations. So beforehand, they used to maybe have frequencies that were only used by the police, or frequencies. If you look at also what's going on between mobile, 5G, 6G, and space, using the same bands, and that those bands will then be freed up to use for space, or for vice versa. And of course, you're seeing companies like AST Mobile, which is also one of our Seraphim portfolio companies, where they're mixing the mobile bands with satellite technology. So that is one thing, and we also have to be creative and saying, okay, can we open up more bands? And here we sometimes do have to lobby governments and say, when I was doing Iridium, I lobbied the German government to give me this was 1994, 1995, to give me the frequencies that the German military was using for Iridium. That was kind of a big thing. It was kind of fun. But so, we're also seeing better use of frequency. So we're seeing frequency band reuse. We're seeing terminals that are smarter, that are more efficient. We're seeing satellites, that are also, using the multi-frequency reuse, etc. So we're seeing a lot of this. We're also seeing an increase in optical communication, links between satellites, etc. So all of this is happening, but still, this does not stop me from going around the world to try and inspire every country that has not coordinated frequencies for space at the ITU to do so, and to do so now. Because there is what I call, there's a space grab going on. And these are very, very big players who are saying, yes, we're going to put up 1 million satellites, and we need to have this amount of frequencies. Well, you know what? A country, not only India, but even a country like Vietnam or whatever, just as we did in Luxembourg, when we put in for our frequencies in 1983, and nobody thought that we would get those frequencies coordinated. But it turned out that the UK, British Telecom, wanted us to succeed. And they were a big power in space, and they helped us coordinate our frequencies. And, it's a wonderful story. And so, I think that when some of these emerging spacefaring nations, when they go to the ITU and they say, we want to have our frequencies, these are our frequencies, that we will find, maybe regions coming together and saying, we will help you coordinate these frequencies. So yes, the world is wide open. And I would suggest to every young person to be, well, being an entrepreneur is great, but people do not realize that entrepreneurs, need lawyers, they need accountants, I always tell everybody, you have one entrepreneur, but having more than one entrepreneur is a little bit difficult. But each person can contribute. And so if you're in medicine, space medicine is going to be huge. If you're in Earth observation, it is, the climate change, the environment, all of this. So everybody can play a role in space, and I think should play a role in space. So
Right. Speaking of,
and you're doing
yeah.
such a beautiful thing, with the Space Club here, Space Club India, to encourage those young people. And they were, by the way, they were dynamite. I loved them. They were so interested and wanting to, know what they should be doing, etc. So you're doing a great thing here.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Candace. But a lot of young people will be watching you right now, who some of whom could be space founders in
Yes.
the future, investors, and what is the kind of advice that you would give a young founder walking in with a pitch today, as opposed to 20 years ago?
Well, for me, by the way, I am very often asked to help people with their pitches. And I say, you don't understand. It starts way beforehand. It starts with the business plan. You have to have a good business plan, and you have to do the business plan. You cannot have somebody else, make the business plan for you, because there are a lot of companies out there who do make business plans for founders. But no, you have to make that business plan. You have to say, do I really think that I can get this client to get me to pay me at this amount of money at this time? Do I really think that my system, my product, my service is going to be ready? Do I think it's going to do what it's supposed to do? Do I think that I can make it for this amount of money, etc.? I mean, a business plan it's a reality check for you. And once you have that business plan and you feel comfortable with it, then you can go to someone to say, okay, I believe that this is what I can do, and that I can give you a return on investment. And, that is kind of the cardinal rule of investing anyway, and this bang for the buck, it really hasn't changed in the last 40, 50 years, and defying and using gravity hasn't changed either. So I would stick to those two principles.
Candace, you must have seen a lot of startups come up and go into the valley of death. Many of them perish, they will never come back, and a couple of them again, rise again from the ashes and climb up. What is your understanding of the percentage of people who are successful? How many people crash into the valley of death and never come up and pick up jobs? And how many people rise from the ashes and have gone way, way up? And how does an investing company like yours pick up these people at those high or low points?
So I'm going to surprise you. So many governments, gave grants to entrepreneurs for $50,000, et cetera, et cetera. I don't believe in scaling up. I believe in thinking big from the very beginning. For me to be interested, if people come to me and say, we're going to start here, and then we go here, here, and here, I say, forget it. I want to have the big vision. I want to understand from the beginning that you are going to be a global company, that you are planning to do it this way, and that you are going to be raising money so that you can do it. And so, those entrepreneurs who have a bold and big vision, who have done the math, who have a proven technology, who have a good market. Those are the ones who are going to get investments from us. The ones who've done the Valley of Death, quite frankly, they probably were going to do it. And unfortunately, it's a waste of time and a waste of money, because very often, how many small entrepreneurs have you seen really ever get through that Valley of Death and then grow? Very little. Whereas if you have an entrepreneur, such as a Pixel, such as, a Skylo, such as, my gosh, Skyroot. We haven't even talked about Skyroot. This is just fantastic. And congratulations to India, for this amazing company, amazing success. They weren't saying, oh, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. No, they said, we are going to build a privately financed, a small sat launcher for India. And that's what they did. And for the world. And, everybody's saying, wow, fantastic. So, they didn't have their little, starting and then scaling. No. Big vision, bold vision, good entrepreneurs, stay with it, get it funded or get it invested correctly so that, you've done your math, you've done your business plan, and then go for it.
Right. And, in conclusion, Candace, I must ask you, it's a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for
You're
taking the
welcome.
time out to talk to us
Yeah.
at the Space Club of India. I must ask you this about where you see India in this new space race. What brings you here first? I should have asked you that right at the beginning.
Well, you can. Absolutely. There's no question in my
Right.
mind and in Seraphim's mind that India is the next space country. None, bar none. And Skyroot's, success, the fact that you have China and you have the United States, and you now have India, who has launched their own, private satellite system. So this is absolutely phenomenal. There is no question in our minds but that India is the next big space country. We are going to be here. We're speaking with a number of people. We've identified, as I say, some great people for also helping us, shall we say, work here in India to perhaps even, realize its potential in space even more. So, yeah, we are all very excited about India.
I'm actually getting emotional about this expression of yours that India is the next space country. And I think Space Club of India is a great vehicle
Yes.
to make it happen faster, expand it to a point where large people, the current generations, benefited about going into the space sector at the earliest.
Yeah.
And I think Space Club of India offers itself to be one vehicle for this transformation. And I think we owe it to the nation, and we also owe it to the world, because if we are going to contribute as a nation for the future space, well, whether we contribute to the world as well.
Absolutely. And when you have these young people and they're building their own rockets, they're building their own satellites, they're building their own capsules to grow plants or whatever, precision systems, it will be like what you did basically with software. You will have a whole enabled generation who's experts in their field. Very, very exciting, and congratulations on Space Club India.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Candace. And on that note, I must thank you once again for taking the time to be
My
with
very
us
great
here.
pleasure and honor. Yes.
Thank you.
To
And
inaugurate your new studio.
thank you. Thanks, Candace.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, General
Thank you.
Fanu.
Thank you so much.